lot of my girls have not represented their school in a sport in any other facet for a multitude of reasons. So it gives them an opportunity to develop those skills, to actually put those skills into practice, and really excel, to be honest.
That was Kerry Daud, a leading expert in e-learning and curriculum design, talking to us about how esports gave her girl gaming students a chance to develop as people through gaming. Kerry is the head of faculty at Saint Margaret's Anglican Girls' School, where she is known for driving innovative changes in education and leading curriculum projects to develop strategic literacy plans. She was recognised on the Educator hot list in 2022. We are lucky to have Kerry with Valley Esports today to share insights about girls and gaming and the impact it can have on the gaming and esports industry, as well as the lives of the students involved. Kerry, we've been talking, hanging out for a little while in the esports scene, and I'm really excited to have this conversation. I think it's really good timing as well because of last weekend. You had your first ever Girls in Gaming event at Saint Margaret's, and yes. I really wanted to use this next half an hour to really delve into that and really what the initiatives were, what the impacts were, and why there's such an important initiative to push forward with. So what I want to know is, what inspired the creation of the Girls in Gaming Esports Cup tournament and how it all happened?
I guess what inspired it was 4 girls 4 years ago that wanted to compete in esports. And as a school, us wanting to provide them with that opportunity. As we know, esports brings a really eclectic, broad range of students into it. So we wanted to make sure that we gave every girl every opportunity, so to speak. I have 2 sons who have gamed, so whilst not being a gamer myself, have certainly been familiar with gaming just in my own personal context. But I was also very aware from them that the environment online for girls could be not the most pleasant place. And my children would often talk about like some of the things I'd heard online and how they were a little bit taken aback by it. So when we started with our 4 girls, we noticed very, very quickly, even in official competitions, that what some construe as banter could make esports and the online environment not feel entirely safe or welcoming for girls. So I really wanted to provide girls with the same opportunity as everyone else has to game safely, but also to be able to game in a way that they can improve their skills and feel confident and comfortable in the online world without having to deal with some of the misogyny and some of the stuff that's not age appropriate as well that they were experiencing.
I'm gonna dig a little deeper into the impacts in a second. I know everything you just said is true. Like I know, I think it's a huge part of. I know Valor's push is, not even just from trying to get control of those things. And you even talked about official competitions, but I know the importance of having competitions in person and what that does for the impact of someone's development. Before we go into those impacts, what I'd love to know is, where did you start with something like this? This was the concept. This is what you want to achieve. Esports is a relatively, I know it's not super new, but it's relatively still a really new industry. How did you start with a conversation like this with the school?
Yeah, it's really hard, to be honest. We are, in the eyes of parents, a new sport. Certainly in the eyes of some schooling systems, a new sport. And girls in particular don't get a big look in because obviously there's far more representation by boys, just in sheer numbers. I think the last lot of statistics had something like 87% of girls between the age of 14 and 24 game online, but they only represent 5% of gamers in official esports competitions. So it was about going to my principal and saying, we've got some girls interested in this, and I feel that as an industry, it's something that we should be providing an opportunity for girls to experience. We know it's not just gaming. We know it's a multimedia industry. It's $1 billion industry. So we're talking about graphic design. We're talking about, coding, and we're talking about all sorts of digital careers that can come through an interest in this field. And I'm very lucky that she's very progressive. We started with nothing. To be honest, I didn't have a budget. We started with 4 secondhand computers that we shared with the art department. We're also a boarding school, so some of my girls actually live here, so they can't just go home and game either. They don't have that capacity in their boarding rooms. It started with conversations about how are we going to do this safely, and we came to this decision that our girls would only be gaming from a Saint Margaret's perspective in a supervised, supportive environment, which meant complex conversations, some of the banter, so to speak, and also to actually support them in supporting each other. So we started with 4 old computers, no money. We then managed to get a 5th computer, which meant we had a whole team set. That was all very exciting. And then we pulled out an old compactus, which is those big old sort of accordion looking things that exist in libraries and don't get used a lot anymore. And we turned that into our esports room, and we recycled old desks, and our facilities team helped us use old teacher desks to create gaming desks. So everything that we have actually came from resources that we found.
Yeah. And I it's so funny. We obviously don't talk every week, or we talk, nearly every quarter, or when we run into each other events. But I remember, nearly a year and a half ago when we were just first starting, the conversation was, we got, this is where we're at. Now we're looking at maybe having a support coach come in who's, not a professional coach, but they're there to help. And then I got to see your room for the first time, but I never saw the early days. Yeah. But it looks quite good now. I was in there at the event and had a look around, and it looks like a great little space to even have it now, outside of another department. A lot of schools in Australia, particularly I go to, where I visit, there's the PCs, but it's lined up with robotics in the background or something, which is great to have it all in the same space, but you can't actually talk to each other in the same room because it's so loud. And with gaming, it's kind of the whole point is being able to communicate with each other strategically in certain games.
Yeah.
What have you found from a skill base with the girls participating, not just from the training that you put on and that's being put on at the moment, but what did you find around the skills and some of the skills you were wanting to acquire and some of the skills you actually didn't think were going to happen but you saw over the weekend?
Absolutely. Being that someone who's not a gamer themselves, I guess I can see it from a broader educational perspective. For me, it is the problem solving. It is the way that kids that don't necessarily do group work well come together to do teamwork well. It's quite a different situation where they take on different roles and responsibilities, and logistically, the way they organize themselves both outside the game and inside the game. I think these are skills that they will take into industry, and you see them step up in a way that other, I guess, educational opportunities don't provide them. So that sort of creative lateral thinking, the ability to communicate almost in a different language. And I know that sounds a bit unusual, but for those outside of the gaming world, there's language that they use to negotiate, what team members doing what at a particular time. And it's learning a new communication skill. So I think that it has such a broad scope for a lot of students that may not get those experiences because traditional sports are not going to be for them.
Yeah.
And a lot of my girls have not represented their school in a sport in any other facet, for a multitude of reasons. So it gives them an opportunity to develop those skills, to actually put those skills into practice, and really excel, to be honest.
It's yeah, it is so much data to back it up. I didn't realize how much data was being done particularly the US, where there's obviously a larger user base and they're able to get easier access to that data. But
Absolutely.
I think at a Merino Valley, which is a district in LA, had around 600 students surveyed, and 40% of them in esports had never participated in extracurricular activity before. And this was, that's a crazy number of kids out of the 1,800 in the esports program there in the US. Obviously, that's huge
Yeah,
numbers.
absolutely.
But 40% of 600 is not a small number that got engaged in this kind of communication. And I think it's anyone who's played football, anyone who's played, volleyball. It's not a normal communication style. It's just the same as esports. You're communicating so quickly, so efficiently, trying to get better and faster. And talk about going into industry or into a real life job. Like you obviously don't you don't always talk like that unless you're probably maybe in the army or
Yes.
in a high pressure situation. But getting used to that is just such an important factor.
But even in
What?
industry, you do learn a discourse. So every industry has
Yeah,
its own language, whether it's medicine or engineering or, veterinary science. Even teaching has its own discourse, has its own language. So it's teaching kids that there's different ways to communicate in different situations when you have an end goal, that you've got to work with others and you've got to get something done. So it shows them that it's not about being on an individual term, it's actually being able to communicate on a collective term, and that's really important.
yeah, it's really really good point actually. I almost forget that from being back in the corporate world. Some of the, before I joined, even through university, you learn acronyms, you learn language, but until you're actually in the hot seat, you don't realize what actually is going on until you're there. So that's a really good point. Outside of skills, is there any examples or any you've told me some incredible stories. I don't want to speak for you, but any situations where you could see an impact outside of the skill based on the girls that you are within your team, or even that you saw on the weekend?
Yeah, I certainly can. One of the most heartwarming parts of the weekend was not just watching the girls who came from all different schools and had the most wonderful time, but we had a past student come back, and this past student was in that original four, and she had enormous challenges through schooling, and it really made me see that our schools are communities, and it was the community that gave this student the confidence to go from pre-prep all the way through school, feel included and feel brave enough to take chances. It was our school community that provided her an opportunity to get involved in a sport such as esports, that then drove a passion for her, because she went from there to TAFE, where she did an IT diploma, and now she's in university doing game design. And she came back this confident, proud woman.
We'll be back to hear more from Kerry after this break. Here's a little snippet of what you can expect.
Getting industry to start to see the potential of these girls we're still at the very sort of early stages of it, but we're starting to see it. We're starting to see them recognised. It's still not going to be super fast, and it's still going to be hard, but the recognition of these events, even at the stage we're at, is still light years away from where we were 4 years ago.
You can use Valor's training platform to bring professional esports into the classroom, and I'm going to show you how in 30 seconds. First up, let's choose the training camp that's right for me. Our platform is inclusive of all experience levels, so there's a range of choices. Here you can see a structured training roadmap. Let's start our first session. Now I can scaffold my esports teams using learning, quizzes, and training. See, wasn't even 30 seconds. You focus on play, we'll do the rest. Sign up for free today at valoresports.com and take your program to the next level.
Now, back to the show with Kerry.
And you can see the role that not just esports, but school communities in providing opportunities for all students have in actually building up and supporting these young people to become the person that they can be, rather than closing off opportunities, and then narrowing down, what their future potential is. The school community, from pre-prep all the way through, and esports was a part of that, actually provided this confidence and support that enabled this student to go, I can actually be that, in a tough field. So that's not an outcome that would have been predicted earlier on, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. I think it's, you don't realize the impact. And it's funny being back, when I go back to schools, I remember some of the, my own memories of school. But I think one of the stories you told me when we first met was around a student who, and maybe this was the original four, who essentially was, maybe unbelievably shy, even non-verbal in a sense. And you said that the progress that you saw, can you tell me a bit more about that? I think it's really important. It's something that I reflect on a lot, and I talk to a lot of girls' schools about, in particular. But I'd love to hear again from your words.
This was another student, a different one to her, and again, a lot of very broad life significant challenges. It gave her a community. It gave her an opportunity to represent her school in a sport. Her mother was in tears that her daughter had that opportunity, and was able to be celebrated by the school in that way. But it gave her the confidence that she was very interested in a particular game. And then I gave her the role of mentoring and coaching some of our younger students in that game. So the sense of pride, the sense of value, the ability for her to use her words in a way that she felt was making a real difference because she was supporting students younger than her, was absolutely mind-blowing. And she just blossomed, absolutely blossomed. Even now, when she comes in to visit, she still comes back to visit. She'll talk about how she was like really great at that game, and she helped, teach that girl when she was in grade 8 or grade 7. The sense of value that these types of sports can give students of so many different types, because we're all normal in so many different ways, and we're all unusual in so many different ways. There is really an avenue and an openness in this sport that can make a life-changing difference for some of these students.
It's it's super inspiring. I wanted to ask, and this is one of the questions I had, from a school perspective. We had this incredible impact on the individuals and the immediate people around them. What about the broader spectrum? What do you think this kind of tournament? We were speaking beforehand that the school was interested in. What's the next event look like? What's the broader impact that you've seen on your community since you've run the event?
Yeah, look, it's been really hard, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Girls in esports don't get much of a look in. It's hard to get traction, and you've got to really just keep putting yourself out there over and over and over again. But we are seeing more people paying attention to the fact that girls require these spaces. We are seeing industry start to recognise that half the population isn't working in their fields in the digital arena, so they're missing 50% of what could be possibly the most innovative, creative minds that they're not getting access to. So we were really lucky in that Yabba saw that our little sport gave girls an opportunity to feel empowered, and they saw it as an opportunity to actually encourage girls to go into emerging technologies and the digital fields in lots of different ways. And that sponsorship has made a huge difference for us. Girls in Gaming is not a business. We are not trying to create a business. What we're trying to create is a program that hopefully industry and other schools will get behind so that girls in high school can build the skills that esports can help them develop, provide a community for students that may not have found their community yet, and then hopefully go into an industry where they are still very underrepresented, and really make a difference in the world. So getting industry to start to see the potential of these girls is, we're still at the very sort of early stages of it, but we're starting to see it. We're starting to see them recognised. It's still not going to be super fast, and it's still going to be hard, but the recognition of these events, even at the stage we're at, is still light years away from where we were 4 years ago. And it's not just a token gender tick in the box. It's not just a, oh yeah, there's that, we've covered girls, we've had a competition.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? These are industries that people came on Saturday from industry because they believe that these girls are worth investing in, and that these girls are going to provide incredibly valuable sort of services to their industries in the future. So our younger girls now have seen older girls go, oh, and I can do that too. That could be me as we grow. So I'm hoping that if we can get more investment, we can hold more of these events and more girls are involved, and then more girls go into emerging technologies and the gaming industry, even if it's in the screencasting, and not just the gaming, but the graphic design. And we start to see these companies go, we need more female characters in these stories. We need more female representation in this industry, because this is 50% of the world's population that can provide us with some of the most innovative thinking that we're missing out on.
I can't add anything else. That is so well articulated. The only thing I can give is a real life example from last week when I was supporting an event run by Growy Education, which is about youth skills, transferable skills to push into unknown industries. Like, we don't know exactly what, if it's AI, esports, we know it's tech. I'm just not 100% sure which one, but which skills can we develop? And
Yes.
we in the forum that we were running, that I was part of, there was a young student there, and we'll talk about the gaming industry. And I went around the room asking, if you couldn't fail, what is your dream job? And I gave them examples of mine and how I actually did fail, but it landed me in another world, which was a good thing.
Yeah.
And one of the young students was quite shy, female student. She said, I want to be an artist, but I can't make much money doing that, so I better pick something else. And one of the other people there, a guy called Matt from ACS, Australian Computer Society, said, well, actually, I know female friends and colleagues of mine who now work in the film and gaming industry who were artists, and now they were known for this type of artwork, and now they build gaming artwork and they do all the story development concepts for gaming. A whole face changed, whole attitude. And she actually started giving out all these ideas of games that she thinks should be developed in this exercise we were doing. And it was hilarious. She was some of the best ideas I've heard for a horror puzzle game, to the point where she was giving them away to other kids who weren't participating properly. And she was saying, no, you can have that idea, I'll do my own. Like, it was just the change within a couple of minutes of seeing another female doing what she loves and being able to apply it for different ways in her life was incredible. So you're on the money. I'm seeing it, which leads me to the next question. What is the future of girls in gaming? What do you really want to achieve out? You're talking that it's going to take a little bit of time.
Yeah.
What is the goal long term?
My goal is for girls not to be a gender tick, to be absolutely valued for everything that they bring to the table. What that means is that I would like a website called Girls in Gaming. I would like it to remain free, which means that we need industry support. And I would like it to be a global website where girls, whether they're have got their own team in their own community or whether they're at a school, can actually put up that, I've got a girls team, we're playing League of Legends, we would love to scrimmage against other all-girls teams, this is our time zone, these are the times we're available, and that way girls can actually play other girls at a high school level, at that scrimmaging level. They can build their skills up, they can get their levels up in their game, so that if they do decide to go into university systems or they do decide to go professional, they've had those foundation years to actually really develop their skills. They can access online coaching such as Valor. So, for example, my dream is that Valor would be a part of our Girls in Gaming site. So for girls that can't access what I have here at Saint Margaret's, for girls that can't have an esports room at their school, where they can't get someone that supervises them and trains them, they've got a really good alternative with, an industry standard, education-based system where they can actually, at high school, develop their skills, develop their friendships, develop their community and their identity. They can scrimmage, then they can compete at the same level as everyone else. And they can do it with confidence, which means that they're going to be able to help break down some of those gender walls that exist within the industry as a whole. It means that they're going to have the self-confidence to shut down misogyny or banter or inappropriate play. And it means they're going to have the confidence to negotiate for themselves if they do get to a level where they're being sponsored or supported, and they can actually say, no, I'm worth more. I'm worth this much because I've been supported since I was 12 years old, and I've done the yards, and I've had industry support, and I have the confidence to actually demand what I'm worth. That is my goal. So that is what I want from Girls in Gaming. I want a website that brings globally girls together, and I want it to remain free so that there are no economic boundaries, because we know that girls, especially in a range of countries around the world, do not have the same access to finances or support or schools. So I want it to be free. I want industry to be able to support them through this website, whether it's in training or whether it's in screencasting or whether it's learning to be a graphic designer or a storyboard. And I want us to actually change the industry.
Yeah, beautiful. I love it so much. It's honestly, it's achievable. It's just buy-in. It's just getting this correct buy-in. I mean, Valor's bought in. We're here. We're step one done. Which is my final question. What can schools and industry and other stakeholders do to get involved and start supporting? How can people reach out, or what do they need to do to be ready to help and support the next event, or be part of the pipeline for the next event?
Yeah, schools respond. This is a free event. Like, if you see it advertised, speak to your girls. You will have girls in your school that game. Speak to them. Find out what they're interested in. Support them in getting involved in a more supportive sort of professional environment, to be honest. You don't have to have a lot of money to do this. We started with nothing, absolutely nothing. You can do this, with what you've got already. You don't have to have the flashiest machine to get started. And actually, support these girls, even if you start with 4 girls. Those 4 girls are worth your support. And if you're in a co-ed school, make sure that those girls have some time in your space to have girl-only training, because a lot of girls from co-ed situations do often articulate that they feel unwelcome when a lot of the other boys are in there. So provide a safe space. Industry, we need your support. Girls don't want to be a gender tick. We want to be valued, but we need to get the same sort of funding and representation that you see some of the other big esports clubs get. And again, we're only making up about 5% of those esports clubs. So it's really hard to get that. So show that you value 50% of this population, and that you're not just, gender washing. Put your money where your mouth is, because we've got some girls that will blow your mind if you give them the opportunity.
Beautiful. I am just so grateful to have you on. I'm so grateful to be part of seeing what's happening and contributing where we can. And thank you, Kerry. I'm really excited to push this out and make sure Girls in Gaming gets the support it deserves. So thank you very much.
Thanks for the opportunity.
As I wrap up today's episode, I've been inspired by Kerry's passion and insights on Girls in Gaming. Her dedication to creating safe, empowering spaces in esports shows what can be achieved with determination and vision. Kerry's journey, starting with 4 second-hand computers and building a thriving esports program, reminds us that with the right support, anybody can excel in any field. Esports is about more than just games. It's about building skills, confidence, and community. With leaders like Kerry paving the way, opportunities are expanding, and the potential is limitless. Thank you for joining us today. Keep gaming, keep learning, and keep believing in yourself.